John here with Freedom Pharma. I'm going to relate a little story from way back in my, probably 17 or 18 years old, down at a lake called West Hawk Lake in the White Shell, which is east of Winnipeg, probably about 90 miles. And a bunch of guys are hanging out in front of it was called the TC at the time, called the Trans-Canada. It was a bar, but we were all outside. We were all too young to be drinking anyway. And, it was 21 of the age group at the time, or age at the time. And so I guess we had one beer between 15 guys, or we're standing around somebody's car, and I mean, it's like we're having sips of a beer. It's like one beer for 15 guys. Anyway, whatever happened, the beer ends up on the top of the car that we're leaning against, and all of a sudden, the RCMP pull up, and that's the Canadian National Police, and they come screeching to a halt, and are looking at us. We're not doing anything. We're just standing there now at this point, but there is a beer, not even probably nothing left in it, sitting on the roof of the car. And I've always been somewhat defiant of obnoxious power. I'm very respectful of power, that is earning, power. But, and by the way, I'd be very respectful of the RCMP under normal circumstances. But these guys pulled up, and especially one of them, and I find out later, notoriously one of them, and he slams on the brakes, and he gets out of the car like he's Hitler, for crying out loud, and he's now looking at us and then he's literally walking up and down, it's like inspecting us like we're in the army and he's the sergeant. And I'm thinking, why am I even standing here? I don't have to even pay any attention to you. I'm not doing anything wrong. And so I decided to just be a little obnoxious. I started whistling, sort of. Next thing I know, I am flying through the air and I'm in the back of the cop car. And I'm thinking, oh, man, and obviously this one guy, and I'm not going to say his name, I think he's passed away since, because that was a long, long time ago, but he was obnoxious, no offense. He was, and matter of fact, I spoke with a lot of RCMP people who I knew after that, and they knew him and they didn't like him either. Anyway, so they take me to the next town down, which is called Falcon Lake, and that's where they're based. They have a jail there. Boom, I get thrown in jail for the night. Anyway, so there I am in jail, and now these guys go out, and they, are back on doing more, harassing people as far as I'm concerned. We're not, in a provincial park area, and so, here you got to keep order, but let's not get crazy when there's no disorder happening. You don't have to make things worse. But anyway, so I'm in jail. These guys have gone, but they come back in every now and again, throw somebody else in jail with us, and me, anyway. And but as they go out, the guy they have to have somebody in the jail, because let's face it, if all of a sudden it burned down, you got to have somebody that can let us out so we don't go down with the ship. Anyway, there was some young guy, he was a camp counselor or something, but he's sort of there monitoring just while the police are out on doing their rounds and stuff. And he puts a couple of speakers, thinking we wanted to be entertained, on the outside of the cell, and he starts playing music. And I don't even know what the music was, but it was certainly anything but what I liked. It was like, I'm thinking, this is cruel and unusual punishment, now. So anyway, so I spend the night in jail. The next day, they have I guess there's a justice of the peace or whatever comes by, and how do you plead? And I said, what do you plead to what? What did I do? And they were going to try to get me for drinking underage. I guess, in a public place, one of those two things. I don't know what it was. They had no evidence at all that I was holding the beer can or anything. But regardless, anyway, I said not guilty, of course, and so I'm remanded. So I go back to Winnipeg, which is so I spent the one night in jail, and now probably a month later I have to go to court. Anyway, I get to court and I show up, and the magistrate we had then was, he was on side with the RCMP no matter what. Wasn't going to listen to a story at all. And I sort of said, well, this is and I was there by myself, going to defend myself. And before I could say a word, the magistrate just shut me down. I'm going to remand you. I said, well, wait, I've already been remanded. And now he's really pissed because I'm questioning the judge. No, I've been remanded because the day after I was in jail, in the morning I woke up, I had a magistrate then remand me. So this is my second remand. Anyway, because he wasn't going to hear the case. As a matter of fact, to the credit of the people in the court, they actually said to the judge that was there that Yes, he had been remanded already once. Anyway, now I got to come back again. And by the way, I had to drive to Steinbach, and that's about a 45-minute drive from Winnipeg. So anyway, the next time we're going out to Steinbach, and you know, this is the third time now to go and judge this case. And so I bring my father along with me, who's not a lawyer of any type, and he's going to be my defense. Anyway, so we get into the court, and now the funny part of it is the judge we got this time, I knew him. As a matter of fact, I'm a member of a club in Winnipeg. It's called the Winter Club, and they have squash and tennis and badminton and things like that. And this guy was a member there, and so I didn't know him very well. My father knew him, and he was a nice guy. I mean, I knew him, and so now he's hearing the case, and so we're going to do it like, what do we know about court cases? The only thing we'd ever seen was probably Perry Mason on TV, which was, there was a TV series that was all about, court cases, and Perry Mason was the defense lawyer. Anyway, so my dad gets up and he's got the RCMP officer on the stand, and those guys don't like being questioned. They like it when they get their way 100%. So first thing my father's asking is, and so you're suggesting that out of the 15 people, Mr. RCMP officer, not to mention any names, and I remember the name well, and that's 50 odd years later, that it was my son that was responsible for that one beer that was sitting on the top of the car when you saw it? Yes. All right, and what time of night did you pull up and see these people and my son drinking this beer? About 11 o'clock at night. I said, 11 o'clock at night on such and such a date in June, it would have been dark. Yes. And so you could distinguish from probably you're 40 feet away. Now the judge says, okay, we don't really do it like that, like Perry Mason. Anyway, so how did we know? But anyway, meantime, the RCMP officer was getting totally pissed because he's getting questioned on things. And by the way, we had him on it for sure. Anyway, it went on for a little while longer, and finally the judge said, okay, not guilty, $10 fine for whatever, for just being there. And I thought, well, I guess we sort of got off all right on that one. But anyway, I still remember that very well, and I talked to many people over the time that had run into him, that same RCMP. I ran into him a few times after that as well. And funny enough, totally different circumstances the next time I met him. Matter of fact, respect on both sides the next time. In other words, he saw me and he knew exactly who I was. We'd seen each other now 3 times in court. And it was like, Mr. Hare, and I said Mr. P, I didn't say his name, and very cordial. But it was amazing how when he could be a bully, and if he could get away with it, he would. And I guess that's maybe the lesson here is, you can't let somebody with that kind of authority, with no rights for that kind of authority, to push you around. And so I guess that's what happened. And by the way, that's sort of been my whole thing with Freedom Pharma. All along I felt, listen, I like to play by the rules, there's no question about it, but when those rules are being suppressed by people that shouldn't be doing it, then I'll take exception to it. And by the way, that sort of happened, throughout the whole COVID thing. That was where Freedom Pharma started from. I didn't really like the way the authoritarians were sort of making everybody comply with what I thought wasn't even, even close to being necessary. And as a matter of fact, in hindsight, we look back and say, yeah, I was probably right. But as a matter of fact, we're in the vaccine production business, so I know a lot of stuff about it. Anyway. And it's also Canada Day long weekend this weekend, and I just wanted to sort of give that little story to start with. But one of the things that we've done that sort of is related to Freedom Pharma is, our goal in Freedom Pharma is to sort of free you from the tyranny of Big Pharma, really, more than anything else. And we have a thing called Gut Fix, GUTFYX.com. We'd like you to have a look at that, and it's something you'll be probably pretty amazed at. As a matter of fact, on this weekend, probably a lot of people might be drinking too much, don't be doing any driving, of course, but Gut Fix works really well for hangovers. Anyway, and not suggesting anybody's going to imbibe more than they should on Canada's biggest holiday. But anyway, John here signing off for Gut Fix and Freedom Pharma. Gut Fix yourself.